mobile phones, laptops, tablets, and everything in between. This is Sean and Sean, and you're listening to the Silicon Theory Podcast. Greetings, fellow tech seekers. Sean from Silicon Theory here, and I'm about to welcome you to another exciting episode of the Silicon Theory Podcast. I'm about to dial up Sean P. shortly, and we've got a lot to cover for you this evening. We've got the Apple event coming up tomorrow. We've got many Pixel 4 leaks, and we've also got some other Samsung stuff that we haven't had a chance to cover yet, so we're going to talk about it tonight. So give me two shakes, and let's ring him up.
Sean Spring, as I live and die.
What is up?
Not much.
Business as usual? Same old. I'm trying something new, so we're going to be doing a live simulcast. Well, not really live because I'm recording it, but I am recording it for our YouTube fans out there. So say hello to everybody in YouTube land.
Hello, everybody in YouTube land.
Perfect. We've got a lot to cover, and I wanted to probably start with the Apple stuff first because that's most immediate with the event coming up tomorrow. So, hot mic, getting a little bit of feedback from my phone here. That's kind of wacky. And then we can cover the Pixel stuff and then maybe the Samsung stuff at the end. What do you think?
Yeah, sounds like a plan.
Okay.
Let's jump in.
Cool beans. So, what do you feel about the Apple event tomorrow? What's your take on what Apple's got to show us tomorrow?
Based on the leaks, if I were to sum it up in one word, it would be boring.
Boring?
Yeah, look, we've talked about it for years. I think we just have to realize that we're like super niche users who care about things like specs and new technology. And every couple of years, Apple does one of these events where they effectively take their design, and they're on like a 3-year cycle now. So they're going to show phones that are identical to what they had last year, except for they added a camera to each one of them. And it has the normal stuff like a processor upgrade, and they'll probably add an extra gig of RAM or something. But really, it's boring. I mean, it literally is the same phone as last year with a really ugly camera bump. The XR, I still refuse to call it 10, replacement gets one extra camera, so it'll have 2. It sounds like a normal camera in a wide angle. And then the Pro, their new higher-end phones, are going to have 3 cameras, wide angle, telephoto, and kind of the normal camera. And this is, I don't know, it's hard to get excited. Android phones have been rocking the 3-camera setup for quite some time now.
A few of them, yeah.
13, they'll have the upgraded processor, and I've seen some benchmarks which show a little bit of improvement, but not much. I think the years where they're doing these massive 10 or 15% improvement plus maybe, I don't know, coming to an end, although we'll see when the official benchmarks come out. But yeah, I don't know. Supposedly it may have Apple Pencil support, and it was supposed to have reverse wireless charging like Huawei and Samsung have, but then there was a report that came out today that said they scrapped that at the last minute. It may not have that. So
that same report, by the way, mentioned that probably not going to have Apple Pencil support either.
Yeah. So I don't really know. I think the design's ugly. They haven't been a class leader in design in a while.
Whoa. Tell me how you really feel.
No, I think I am. The notch is huge. Everyone else at least had the decency to either shrink the notch or kind of do things different, like the hole punch or the pop-up camera or whatever, and they just start sticking completely pat where they were. And so it's just, I don't know. As I said, it's unexciting.
Yeah, I hear you. And to think that we've got a couple things going on. So we've got basically what will be presumably the iPhone XR successor, which is rumored to be called just the iPhone 11. And then we're going to have 2 layers above that, the iPhone 11 Pro, which would in essence replace the iPhone XS, and then the completely absurdly named iPhone 11 Pro Max, which will replace the XS Max. And again, the base camera will have the 2 lenses, the pro cameras will have the 3, and presumably some efforts to really focus on photography, as well as, maybe a few other artificial intelligence or machine learning features on the device. But I think Apple's really in a moment where, and I first heard this on Rene Ritchie's Vector podcast, where I think he realizes that Apple may have made a mistake, and that what they've done is they put the standard iPhone as the XS, and then the XS Max is like their super expensive big one, and then the XR was kind of in the middle in terms of like spec and size, but it was the cheapest. And he is speculating that may have misled or confused consumers to the point where people were like, well, I can't really afford the regular iPhone, but I don't want to have the XR because it's basically a statement that says that I can't afford anything but the cheap iPhone. And so when you're buying an iPhone as much as a status symbol as you are for actual functionality, it kind of puts people off. And this new nomenclature kind of brings it more in line with Apple's regular line of hardware. So you have your iPad, and you have your iPad Air, and you have your iPad Pro, right? And then you have your MacBook, you have your MacBook Air, and then you have the MacBook Pro. And everybody just kind of falls in line. Like if you need the regular thing, you get the MacBook. And then if you need, ultra portable or whatever, you get the MacBook Air. And then if you need, professional grade stuff, you get the Pro version. And he thinks that that's what Apple's doing with realigning these things and making them into, man, I'm getting some crazy feedback here. He really thinks that Apple's re-strategizing around the whole brand this year. And aside from the features and functionality and all this kind of stuff, is there anything at all that excites you about the iPhone?
No, that strategy makes sense if I care about the product. Unfortunately, I don't. I know I'm in the minority. The iPhone XR sold more units last month or quarter, I can't remember what I just read, than any other phone on the market. People clearly don't care, so I represent this extreme minority. But look, there's no way to objectively look at the iPhones and argue that they're bringing anything compelling from a hardware standpoint or from a value standpoint, certainly, to the market anymore. They are a commodity, and people who are in the Apple, OS, iOS infrastructure don't care. They're going to buy them anyway, regardless of the fact that they're way too expensive for what they are, regardless of the fact that they haven't been a hardware leader for years. And that's fine. I understand the reasons for that. People just want a phone that quote-unquote works. And they've been using iPhones forever now, and they're just going to continue to buy the newest one. But as someone that is interested in kind of watching new technology and more cutting-edge stuff and seeing where these other OEMs are going in Android land, there's just no argument that anything Apple's doing is compelling. Sorry. It sounds like they may show a sneak peek of their augmented reality glasses, which I'm trying desperately to think of any reason to care about or a use case that's compelling. Just like the AR in their phones. I mean, does anyone care? Is anyone doing anything with AR at this point?
So you know quite a few people with iPhones, fair to say?
Yes.
Okay.
So, I have one.
Well,
for work.
Fair enough.
You do too.
This is true, but I mean in terms of the actual current generation or previous generation iPhones, with Face ID and all that, because that's when really the augmented reality platform started to be touted as something that Apple was going to try and vision their way into. Have you ever seen or heard of anybody using their what do they call it, AR emoji thing? Have you seen anybody do that? Use it at all?
No.
Anybody you know?
No. I mean, maybe the first day they got the phone, they did, some stupid poop emoji where, used their face as a reference point and created something. It's possible, but does anyone really give a shit about that?
No, and that's my point, is that augmented reality does have applications, does have certain use cases for most modern consumers. Well, I was going to say it does have use cases, but not for most modern consumers. Like when we talked about Google Glass, we go, oh, wow, there's now a training module that people can take where they can actually take apart a car in augmented reality using these glasses. Like the medical profession might have a situation where they go, oh, we want you to practice surgery except not on a live person. And so use these augmented reality glasses to practice your skills. There's not really any other scenario, especially from a consumer standpoint, that this makes any kind of sense at all, especially at the price and the premium that Apple's going to be charging for it.
Yeah, I just wake me up when they do something interesting. It's been years. I guess the iPhone 10 was the last time they even attempted to do something interesting, and yeah, it has some fine stuff in it at the time, and I'm just bored with everything they do, and I don't understand why people continue to, other than they're just an ecosystem they're not going to change. Other than that, I can't think of a reason to stay. There's plenty of people that fit into that. Good for them. But I don't know. It's just boring. I still use iOS. I mean, I'm running the 13.1 beta on my work phone, and it has dark mode and some stuff, but iOS is just, it's stable and boring, and their phones are stable and boring, and I totally understand why people buy them because they're totally reliable and they're used to how they work. But
I'm actually
following along. What is there to get excited?
I'm actually going to push back on that.
I was excited about an Apple product. It's been a long time.
I'm pushing back on that because I'm on the iOS 13.1 beta on my work phone too, and let me tell you something. It is not stable. It is a hot mess. I can't get email to work right. A lot of apps crash. Like, it is. I just took the Android 10 update on my Pixel device, and as I think I told you off the air, like, I did a factory reset, and so far it's been working pretty good. And I'll tell you what, it's actually working a heck of a lot better than iOS 13 is. And Apple's got problems if they think that's going to be the finished version of their product, especially when the hardware is so mature and so stable, like you say, like, you know what you're getting in an Apple product when you buy it. But I just don't know about their software. And actually, to me, that's the most interesting thing about this event, because we are actually at a point where they are doing 13.1 beta 2 developer releases. Like, have you ever seen of a .1 beta version that came out before the actual, like, live number test?
You know what? When I say stable, I don't typically penalize companies for when I'm running betas. So you're right. My email doesn't work either. I have to actually, swipe it away and reopen it in order to get it to refresh. And I'm having some other buggy stuff. I'm talking about the actual release, which I'm presuming will be better because generally it has been. But you're right. They have had a couple of actual buggy OS releases in 13. As far as the betas go, 11 and 12, certainly 12 was more stable for me than 13 has been. 13's been pretty buggy, so that's true. I guess I just have the expectation that the official release will probably be pretty solid. But to your point, I'm running a beta of Android 10 on I have a OnePlus 7 Pro that I'm using as my daily right now, and it's significantly, it has bugs too, but you're right, it's more stable than iOS 13 has been.
And it's crazy. And again, I'm not going to bash Apple for bugs in a developer beta release at that, but it certainly isn't as polished, and it certainly isn't as ready to go as I would expect from a launch announcement that's actually coming tomorrow. So yeah, that worries me a little bit. But just to circle back to the phones, I agree with you. I think we're at a point where Apple kind of realizes that the iPhone really isn't their bread and butter so much anymore. Now, they're going to sell, a whole bunch of these devices, no doubt about it. But they're realizing that services is kind of where the future lies. They're allegedly going to be dropping some additional hardware that we'll talk about in just a minute that again will kind of bring people more deeply and more heavily invested into their ecosystem. And the phone it's strange. It seems like, even though it's going to be the headliner of the show, and it always is, it seems like more of an afterthought this year. And I'm going to put on my tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist guy role right now. But do you think Apple is the one that's maybe behind these leaks, or at least involved in some of these leaks, because they know that their hardware product's not really going to excite anybody this year?
It's hard to say. There's a lot of conspiracy theories, and I think EV Leaks has said that occasionally the companies did leak things to them directly, but generally not. Apple produces, 100 million of these a year, so I think with the supply chain that they have to run with multiple OEMs producing parts for them, schematics and things just leaked out, and that's kind of the way things go. But, yeah, I think if you're going to release a product that's not necessarily so exciting, if these leaks come out and there may be some control or whatnot, it probably is good to get ahead of it because it kind of tempers people's expectations going in a little bit. I don't think there's a whole lot of mystery on the phones for tomorrow left. We'll see. Maybe we'll be proven wrong, but there isn't a whole lot of mystery. People know what they're going to be getting, and there's probably a bunch of people waiting to upgrade that'll do it anyway. But just from a general electronic standpoint and from a general smartphone standpoint of what OEMs are pushing things and who are doing interesting things, Apple's bringing nothing to the table that doesn't already exist. OnePlus at least has the 90 hertz screen this year. That was unique. The whole punch screens of the Samsungs, especially with the Note 10, have these incredibly tiny bezels and kind of these little punches. From a design standpoint, they have also the reverse wireless charging. The Samsungs do. Huawei does. We've had triple cameras in Android phones for God knows how long. We're starting to move, I think, into quad cameras now. So
yeah, Motorola just released their phone with a quad camera in it not that long ago.
And Apple's never been usually one to be on the cutting edge of technology, and I understand that. They don't have 5G this year. Most phones shouldn't. There is no real 5G network here in the United States. It's all a bunch of crap. So
Amen
I don't
to
blame them
that.
at all for not having that. But